Welcome back, Questers, to the Questing Bard. I'm Angela Tano, and those of you who are new, welcome. So today I'm going to be telling you about what has really been on my mind for a very long time, for almost a month now, a little over a month. Before we get into that, I will talk about right now, just keep an update of what's going on with my writing, since after all, this channel is about my writing and the writing process and getting the agents and all that wonderful jazz. So where am I? I'm currently still writing the first draft. It's slow going, but I think I'm pretty much at a point where I think I could really get started. I'm just gonna write a few more chapters, I think, and that will really connect everything. There's still gonna be bits and pieces that will need to be filled in and make it more connected, but it's hard to really feel that. And so I feel like that will be done when I'm doing the second draft. So that is that for the writing. So now we're going to get into what I am very excited to tell you guys about. So as you guys know, the Ahsoka series is coming out next week on August 23rd. 2-episode premiere. Yay, big thumbs up. Yes, I've been a Star Wars fan. If many of you who don't know, I am a huge Star Wars fan. So I want to talk about that in a little detail, in a bit more depth. The reason is because I am a storyteller, and I write stories, and I also analyze other stories. I dissect stories. This is what I like to do. And so when I find stories that are of interest to me, I would like to share them and share why. Just like I reviewed Lindsay Puckett's first novel, I want to analyze and critique great stories and dynamics between characters and other aspects of great storytelling. So today, in honor of what's coming out next week, I will be diving into the Ahsoka series and specifically what has gotten me really hyped. Now, I've always loved Ahsoka, and we're going to start with her. Ahsoka Tano has been a favorite of mine. She's not my first favorite because she didn't get me into Star Wars. That was Padme. Ahsoka has been my second favorite character since Clone Wars got introduced. She really moved up there. She's the second is very close to number one. So Ahsoka is just, I think, a very, very well developed character, and probably the most developed character in Star Wars. And I think what makes her so attractive to those of you who don't know who she is because she's a very independent person. She's developed. We've seen her grow from a bratty little kid, and bratty and annoying and obnoxious and just snippy with Anakin, and hence he called her Snips, to growing up and becoming one of the greatest Jedi in her own right kind of way. I know she's not a Jedi, but Dave Filoni did say she is a Jedi, by her own definition, by a definition of a different kind than the Temple would ever call her that. So that's what she is, but I don't think she's realized it herself. I don't think she's come to that, which is going to be really cool, and I think that's what the series is going to get into. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. But she's also a very kind and caring person. She's compassionate, she's understanding about people, and she's always there for people to help them out. She's giving sagely advice. I feel like she's kind of taken Yoda's place in terms of being the oldest member of the Jedi Order, or what's left of it. She's the oldest living by the time this is coming out. She's really earned the title, though. She's really earned that position. Even Luke looks up to her. Everyone looks up to her for advice. Kanan has, everyone has, because she's the most experienced. And hence she's actually what Dave Filoni calls is the Gandalf. She's of Star Wars, and she was inspired by his Gandalf to make her, especially her older version, I think. I'm not sure about the Padawan for that, but it was simply inspired because Anakin has a Padawan. A lot of the trailers, featurettes really talk about that. Okay, so now you guys know all the cool stuff. She's also a really fierce protector, and she's a great fighter, great with combat and stuff like that. So that's also a really big thumbs up for her too. Aside from that, so where is she now? And let's get into the series. So she's now at a point where she's looked at as the greatest of all. She's somebody you think is perfect, but she's not, and that's really cool. And she's not because she has flaws, just like everyone else in Star Wars, and that's what makes a good story and what makes it realistic and relatable, is because nobody's perfect. And Ahsoka is exactly that. She's not perfect. Because she was Anakin's Padawan, and knew what happened to him later on, that he became Vader. That fear is living with her. And also the Jedi Council didn't trust her. And so she can't trust them anymore. She doesn't trust the system, and she knows that they never trusted her. They never backed her up. And, that's where we are now, and she's lived with that. And that's why she didn't train Grogu, because she was worried what will happen if she trains him and what will happen if she fails him, and he turns to the dark side. His attachment to Djarin is very strong and powerful. Sorry, I do drink that tea. And through that fear, she may have walked out on a possible Padawan or apprentice that she has, is Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren was introduced in Rebels, for those of you who don't know. Sabine is also one of my favorite characters from Rebels. She's out of the Ghost crew, she is definitely my favorite. She's a Mandalorian. She's an artist. She's probably the one I can relate to most. Like, I feel like I can connect with her most because I'm an artist in my own way and write. And that is what I can. And she's kind of like a black sheep in her own family and her world, because Mandalorians and Jedi don't get along. She's one who's okay hanging out with Jedi. She's never had a problem. She's even learned from them a lot too, which we're going to get into a lot as well. So one new revelation that has come out is that Sabine Wren is Force sensitive, and she's going to become Ahsoka's Padawan. Ahsoka has walked out on her, obviously for reasons we probably have mentioned. It's her fear of attachments and everything, and Sabine is definitely attached to Ezra and her dedication to finding him and that commitment. And it's honorable, but it's like you might be too attached. And Sabine's also very stubborn. She's a Mandalorian, and that might be affecting a lot of Ahsoka's decision to walk out, which doesn't go very well probably with Sabine anyways, because Sabine has dealt with abandonment issues before. Yeah. So, gunning into Sabine Wren being Force sensitive. Now, this is a tricky subject because this is a bit of a huge debate. I personally believe she is. And you guys are like, probably a lot of you guys who are noticing this and watching me be like, oh, no, she's not. Yes, she is. She most likely is. It can be small and minute, latent, give or take. But a Jedi really requires having Force sensitivity of some degree. It doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be big, it has to be in some degree. And why is this all of a sudden being brought up? Because the second trailer that was released on July 11th, Sabine actually called Ahsoka Master. And that is what got everyone hyped up. And why do I believe in it? I questioned it in the beginning too, but I'm like, but first of all, Master is a very heavy term. It's not something to be thrown around lightly. So the idea of master, of someone calling someone that, is because they're a teacher, just like you would call a professor. You call them that because you're learning the profession of that field. And in the olden times, that's what you did. When you learned a profession or trade, you were an apprentice, and you called whoever was teaching you a master, because that person was teaching you. You wouldn't do that if you were not being, taught in a profession. So that's one coverage of why I believe that this is legit. So we're going to go into the beginning and just start with that. That was actually the master part, with the first one that was the bottom of the list. So we're going to go into the top one. So we're going to start with how she probably had the Force sensitive, and she may not have had it. Well, she has, actually. She has been Force sensitive, but it was probably dormant or suppressed, because as we know, Mandalorians and Jedi don't get along. Because they I don't know what specifically triggers them. It's probably, from what I've been hearing, is that because Mandalorians only believe what they see, and the Force is not something they can see. And, they don't believe in this kind of religious kind of concept. They're not very religious people. They believe in themselves, they believe in a sense of honor and code and all these things, which Jedi also have something similar. And they both care about value life in their own way. So I can see them clashing a lot. And there hasn't been a Jedi Mandalorian in 1,000 years. Sabine Wren would be the first. So she may have had it and it's been suppressed, or it's been so minute that no one has really noticed, and she's lived her whole life growing up, and there was no Jedi Order to really be like, oh, hey, there's a Jedi Force-sensitive Mandalorian, and probably the Jedi never even touched the Mandalorian children. They're like, oh, no, we have so much conflict already, we're not going to mess with our kids. There was a whole situation in Clone Wars where there was, I forgot the name already, there's people that they accused the Jedi for kidnapping their children, because there was a lot of them are very Force sensitive by nature, So I don't know if the Mandalorians have felt the same way. So it's they're and they don't like the idea of their children being inducted to the enemy's way of thinking or something, So who knows? So Sabine Wren may have just fallen off the radar because of that in the early days, because she was an infant around the Clone War eras, the later half probably. And then Order 66 and everything else went gone. She grew up and there's no Jedi. And from what has happened to her, what happened to her family, what she had to go through, she had a block. She was depressed. She suppressed all her emotions. And therefore, when you suppress yourself, you can't be your true self. You can't be truly who you're meant to become. And that's what's happened to Sabine, because she suppressed everything about her past. So she fights with the Darksaber, which is a huge, which was actually Tar Vizsla's lightsaber. And that saber, when she found it, this is a symbol of the Mandalorians, because it was Tar Vizsla's lightsaber, and they stole it from the temple and used it. And it's so she knew what it was, and she found it on Dathomir, and agreed to let Kanan train her. And the process of training her with the saber, anyone can be trained. Anyone can be trained with the saber, to use a lightsaber. Anyone can. Majority of people can, if you're strong with the Force. And there's a difference between being strong with the Force and being Force sensitive. Everybody has the Force. There's some people who are strong in it. There are a lot of people, or probably are. That doesn't mean make them Force sensitive. This is my belief and what I've understood. So she may have minute Force sensitivity, and from what Kanan has said, her mind was blocked. Her mind was blocked because of those emotional strain, and she's been pushing those things aside and did not want to face them. And of course, Hera pushed Kanan to do that, to let her face her past and let her heal, and she did. And she mastered using the Darksaber, to a basic standard, enough to face Darth Saxon, and she beat him in combat in a duel with Ezra's lightsaber. And so in that scene, that's when she's fighting him, the Force theme comes in twice. Once in the beginning when she's dodging his attempts to strike her with the Darksaber, she's able to dodge effectively. And the Force theme is playing in that moment. She's probably using the Force to dodge him and avoid his slashes. And then it plays at the end of the duel when she has Darth Saxon at saber point, in good old-fashioned Anakin Skywalker style with Dooku. And the Force thing plays again. It plays again. In a way when she's this is, because he tells her that you have to kill me. I'm not going to yield to you. And she's like, that might be the Mandalorian way, but it's not my way. Not anymore. And when she says that, the Force being plays, meaning this is like the Jedi way. This is like a very Jedi thing to do. She doesn't kill him. Even though he is armed. So that's one thing. And even during the duel with, when she was practicing and training with Kanan and Ezra, during a really stressful point, she walks away, and the Bendu senses her, an imbalance in herself, and possibly the Force within her, possibly. So these are the reasons why I think she's Force sensitive. So that is another, and a lot of other people mentioned one other thing. So at the end of Rebels, at the very end, there are lawfuls following Sabine when she was heading to meet up with Ahsoka to go find Ezra and Thrawn, obviously, but primarily Ezra. So yeah, and lawfuls are attracted to Force-sensitive people, and people who are very tuned, so that could have been a reason. Of course, it could also have been because Ahsoka's shuttle was flying over, but it could have been both. It really could have. Another thing I can mention is her art could be her way of being Force-sensitive, because an art form is a way of expression and perception. Seeing people, understanding things, and able to see between the lines. And these are things that people like me, like artists, are really good at doing. I don't know about everyone else in the artistic field. I cannot say for everyone, and I cannot speak for them. But for me, I've always noticed that I can always see things a little differently than others because of my ability as a writer, and I'm usually quiet and observe things more. Sabine has probably something more of that, probably even better than me, way better. And I'm sure there's a lot of artists out there that have a lot of good perceptions about things. So that is that for that. One thing I want to quickly mention on this, and I know people will be, and I understand people, I'm not wanting Sabine to be Force sensitive and being a Jedi and everything, because it's like, oh my god, why does everyone have to be a Jedi? I get it, I hear you, and I love her. I don't need Sabine to be that, but it'll be really cool if she is too. And I trust David Filoni, I do trust him for this, but here's another reason why I think this is important, why it's needed, aside from helping Ahsoka become who she's meant to be. There's possibly two reasons. The other is that because Sabine is Mandalorian, and the idea of her being Force sensitive and being potentially a Jedi, she's going to be the first in 1,000 years, as I mentioned earlier. So that could be vital in uniting them. And we already have Grogu, who's becoming a Mandalorian foundling apprentice to Din Djarin. So this is like a parallel going on. So a Mandalorian takes a Jedi youngling to become a Mandalorian apprentice. And a Jedi, a former Jedi Padawan, who is a Jedi in her own right, takes on a Mandalorian as her own apprentice to train as a Jedi Padawan apprentice. So that is really cool. Alright, so next week I will be showing you kind of what, talking about what I'm going to be doing in Celebration and stuff and prep for the premiere. So yeah, we'll take a little break from writing. But I'll still keep you posted of what's going on with the writing process and things like that. I just feel like let's take a little sideways detour away for a little while. Alright. So that is that. And I will see you guys next week. And I do apologize for the long video, but I guess it's worth it. See ya, and may the Force be with you.